The waiting season will be worth it for you. God is taking you through a process. It took 2 years for the butler to actually remember Joseph. 2 whole years. And this had to happen because Pharaoh had a dream. If not, the butler had totally forgotten about Joseph. 2 full years, and he never for once remembered that there was a person that helped him interpret his dream when he was in the prison. After Joseph interpreted the dreams of the butler and the baker, after 3 days, just the way Joseph interpreted their dreams, it happened exactly like he had said. Why Joseph interpreted their dreams, Joseph told the butler not to forget him. But after the butler left the prison, he forgot about Joseph. Don't be angry when people forget about you. It's probably for a reason. Prior to that 2 years, Joseph had been in the prison long enough before that 2 years actually happened. It was during his stay in the prison that he met the butler and the baker. So for 2 full years, the butler totally forgot about him, and he only remembered because Pharaoh had a dream, and despite Pharaoh calling all the magicians, no one could actually interpret the dreams. It was then it dawned on the butler that there was actually someone who interpreted his dream that actually happened the way he said it will happen, and that was Joseph. But this is exactly where I'm heading to. Joseph was first sold at the age of 17 to slavery by his brothers, and Joseph was brought into the palace to interpret the dreams when he was now 30 years of age. So imagine being 17 and you are being sold to slavery by your own siblings. I can't even imagine what Joseph had to go through. A 17-year-old boy whom his father loved so much. Imagine leaving all those love to something very dangerous and something very horrific. From slavery prison to palace, Joseph was only 17 years, and when he was brought to the palace by butler because of Pharaoh's dream, he was now already 30 years. But his manifestation did not happen. God had to allow him go through that process because that process was necessary for his building. The waiting season will be worth it for you. God is taking you through a process. But you know what is more striking about the story of Joseph? It was how Joseph stayed the course. Joseph honored God. During those process, God was raising him to be a leader. God was raising him to have integrity. God was raising him to be caring, to be kind, to be compassionate. And this is what happened when he was sold to slavery by his brothers, and Potiphar later took him in as a slave. Potiphar eventually trusted him so much that he left everything in his care because Joseph had integrity. Potiphar did not have to look into the affairs of Joseph or look into what Joseph was doing because he trusted Joseph. Joseph had integrity. So during that process, God was training him to have integrity. Joseph did not convert his master's properties. Joseph had integrity. He was trusted not to steal, and that's why Potiphar left him to handle everything. Another thing that happened was that Joseph refused to sleep with Potiphar's wife. He said, how can I do such wicked thing against my master and against God? God was raising him to have what? Integrity, to not be promiscuous, to not be a prime minister that will be trying to, bully all the girls. He was not that kind of person. So God was raising him, and he had the fear of God. He knew that he had to honor God. Those were just training seasons for him. Those were the process he had to go through for the big break. And then he was thrown to prison. And while he was in prison, because he had integrity, he was also left to take care of the prison guard. That's God raising him for leadership. Just as God has started raising him from Potiphar's house, he was still the one in charge of the prison to make sure that everything is going fine. He was the keeper of the prison as a prisoner. And there he exhibited compassion, he exhibited kindness, because that's how he found out that the butler and the baker were sad. Because when he was doing his usual runs of checking everyone in the prison, he asked them, why are you sad today? Why is your face looking somehow? And they said, oh, they had a dream. And because Joseph was compassionate, he was caring, he gave them listening ear, and he was able to provide solution to their dreams or interpret their dreams. So all those times, God was raising him for the top. Imagine Joseph, after interpreting the butler and the baker's dream, thinking that, oh, after 3 days he will be free because the butler will remember him. But it takes 2 whole years before the butler remembers him. I can imagine. How long do you think that Joseph had been in that prison before that 2 years? So he had stayed in that prison prior to that 2 years. Joseph stayed the course. He stayed the course in his waiting season, honoring God, obeying God, having the fear of God. How you wait matters a lot. It's not by waiting, but how are you waiting? Not until he was 30 years old that God said, this is actually the fullness of time. So 17 to 30 years. You can imagine how long it took. Don't rush. And after he had interpreted the dream of Pharaoh, Pharaoh said, who is more discreet and wise like Joseph to handle this case? So God is preparing you. Why God is preparing you? Find the blessings in the storm and trust God as you wait. Honor God, stay with God, and make your waiting process worth the while.